Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. And on this week's episode, we are welcoming Dan Clements, who is joining us all the way from Mount Angel, Oregon. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rhodes.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you. Are you ready to inspire fellow Out Bosses?
I'm ready to inspire everybody.
I love it. Okay. Just a little bit about Dan before we get into the questions. Dan is the co-owner of Cinnable Sweets, which is a dietetic bakery in which all of the delicious baked goods fit into the American Diabetes Association guidelines for people living with diabetes. After surviving gastric bypass surgery, Dan recommitted to improving his health, sparking the motivation for opening up his bakery with his partner in 2017. Just shy of their 2-year anniversary, the bakery is rapidly growing and serves customers here in Oregon, as well as across the United States. So Dan, kick us off with the interview by sharing just a little bit more about your business, your bakery, and what makes it unique.
Well, we are a unique business because we are a dietetic bakery. Everything we make fits the American Diabetes Association guidelines. And from all the research that we did, we've not been able to find another one anywhere in the United States like us. Like you were saying, I actually had gastric bypass in 2004, and about 3 months after the surgery, I had about half a serving of Hamburger Helper that had 3 grams of sugar, and then I actually got what they call dumping syndrome, where it draws all the insulin throughout your body to handle the sugar because the small intestine that has received it doesn't know how to deal with it. And you get the nervous sweats, you get cold shakes, and actually, if you get touched, you're in pain, and that lasts for 4 hours. And I was telling people, if you touch me, I'm going to kill you.
Oh my gosh.
So I kind of set it up there where I'm not going to have any more sugars, and I have continued doing that for most of the time. Here in the bakery, we do use a little bit of brown sugar in some of our items, like our cookies and cinnamon rolls, for moisture retention and caramelization, but that's it. Our main sweetener is usually sucralose, the generic name for Splenda, and I don't have any problems with it, and I've been able to continue losing weight now after opening the bakery that I had gained about 200 pounds before opening, and now I've lost about 150 since then again. So I'm really happy with everything that we're doing and how it's affecting the positivity of my life.
That's amazing. And you opened a bakery. It's not often that people will say, I opened a bakery and I lost weight. So there's something magical.
Very, very true.
You know? So you had said something, and I'm not familiar with this. You said that the syndrome that you had was called jumping or dumping syndrome.
No, dumping syndrome. Yeah.
Dumping.
Because and it, like I said, what it does is just pulls all the insulin throughout the body, and it just kind of dumps it into the small intestine to deal with the sugar.
Wow.
So that really causes some heavy duty processes going on in your body.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So this is, and like you said, when you did the research there, you couldn't find a competitor, in terms of creating baked goods for people with diabetes. And, what a gift that you're giving for folks who, you're managing diabetes and you want to have a donut or you want to have a brownie, and you came across a series of recipes. So I read just a little bit about your business online. You had said that there was a similar bakery that I think was in Portland. So tell us a little bit about that and how you came across the recipes that you're now using in your business.
Well, that's the funny story too. We were living actually in Eugene at the time, and the job I had, I was traveling back and forth to the Clements area every day. And that's about a 2.5-hour drive. And one day I went to the Fred Meyer that's across the street from where she was located at and bought some stuff, and I took it home and got home. My partner Ray pulls the receipt out of the bag and it's like, what's this? It's like grocery store receipt. Duh. He goes, on the back side. I said, sugar-free bakery. I'll be there tomorrow. I went in the first day. I spent $60 that first day, and I was going in 2 to 3 times a week, spending anywhere between $20 and $30 each time I walked in the door. And we had been customers of hers for almost 10 years and been talking to her for almost 8 years about buying the recipes. We just loved Portland so much we didn't want to leave the area. So we were just kind of like hanging around, seeing what could happen. And then on Christmas Eve, she posted on Facebook that as of New Year's Eve, she was going to be closing. We were heartbroken because we had just purchased our dream home. It was on 2 acres of land. Ray loves to collect cars. We have too many cars, some people would say. But we took the extra money that we had, we didn't have a lot, and went and bought the recipes from her after she closed. And then we were looking for a place to open, and we were looking at anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 to open a bakery in the Portland area. And the place that we found here in Mount Angel popped up on us for about a quarter of what it was going to cost in Portland alone.
Wow.
So we got that up and running.
Tell us a little bit about that kind of rationale of, the idea of opening up a bakery in a city, like Portland. It's not the largest city in the country, but like kind of the positives and the negatives of, opting out of kind of a larger area with a lot of foot traffic where, you at least have a steady stream of customers every day. You're thinking of the Mount Angel location, which for folks not familiar with the Pacific Northwest, it's a pretty small town, maybe an hour or so away from Portland.
It's about an hour's drive south, and it's only 3,500 people total in the entire town.
So right, so you have like a cheaper space to open up. How did you kind of balance out the trade-off of like less people, but still, having the confidence that you could, have steady cash flow and kind of grow the business?
Well, we were lucky in that point because when we purchased the recipes from the lady up in the Portland area, she had already a steady customer base that was buying from her. And we were able to buy her customer list too. So we were able to make the announcement that we were opening up. And she also posted on her Facebook page and her web page that we were now opened up down here. So we were able to get her customers in to see us. And a lot of the times they were the ones who kept us going. I have two ladies that visit probably about 2 times a month that are doing Weight Watchers right now. And we have oatmeal cookies that on the Weight Watchers program are a point a piece. And they will come down, order 6 to 12 dozen cookies at a time and put them in their freezer and pull them out one at a time. That way they can have a treat without blowing their diet. And so we've gotten a lot of her customers that way. There's a few of her mail order customers also that have stayed in contact with us and been ordering from us too. So that helped a lot to get through the first year, especially. Yeah,
I think that's such a smart idea of like when people are thinking about starting a business, and in a business like a bakery, you have a niche, that maybe not a lot of bakeries do have, right? So you have that going for you. But this idea of starting something where there's familiarity or a client base that already existed by kind of either purchasing a business that, the owner themselves is retiring or doing something different, and or thinking about, we want to differentiate it as a bakery, we want to obtain recipes that are super unique. And so you were able to purchase those recipes outright. Because that was one of my questions leading into this interview, was like, did you buy them? Do you license them every year? How does that work? Was that also something that was new for you, this idea of buying recipes? Or was that a part of your vision, knowing I really want to open a bakery and I want it to be specific for people with diabetes, and so I'm looking for these kind of recipes?
The recipes, like I said, because of my gastric bypass, I'd always been trying to find as many things sugar-free as possible because I wanted to have that sweet treat without having to worry about getting sick from it again. And so when I found the bakery that was in the Clements area, we were celebrating because Ray has no dietary restriction, and he loved that stuff just as much as I did. So it was great. We could go buy things where we both enjoyed it without either one of us having to sacrifice anything, which was a great deal. Probably the biggest thing that helped us the best was having that built-in customer base coming in from the Portland area to kind of get us through so that we could also get our processes and procedures down so that we knew what we were doing too. That probably is the one thing that was the saving grace for us, because we have here in Mount Angel, there's an Oktoberfest every year. And this little town of 3,500 people, last year there was over 360,000 people that came in over the 4 days.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, it's rather busy, yeah. And so we had enough everything going because we opened up the week of Oktoberfest in 2017. So last year, the first year, everybody wasn't used to it being here. So we had a very comparatively slow 4 days. This past year, it probably quadrupled the amount of business we had over the previous year. Then on November 6th, because November is National Diabetes Month, one of the TV stations from Portland came down and did a morning feature thing on us. There was 3 different cuts in the morning from 7:30 to 9 in the morning. And we opened up at 9 o'clock. And by 9 o'clock, we had people that drove in from Eugene, which is that 2.5 hour drive, to be here when we opened to buy things from us.
Wow.
We still get constantly customers from Eugene to Longview to the coast here. So you're looking at 2.5 hours for some of them to get here to buy our product.
Right. I mean, I was just going to kind of jump in on that of just you've got National Diabetes Month, a news station learns about your bakery and how that fits in with the theme of the month, and just that exposure. It takes kind of just one break like that where you can get a pretty massive audience and gain awareness of like, whoa, we didn't even know that this existed. And just kind of that kind of word of mouth and sharing with other people can really grow a business pretty quickly. And on that note, I'm curious for you, as your business grows, I mean, you've been around for about 2 years. How are you measuring your impact and success when you're working with your customers? Like, what are some of the measurements for you that indicate, yeah, we're on the right path, or we want to change these things to kind of move in the direction that feels super successful for us?
Interesting. We do not have any physical things. We keep track of how much money, we're making every day, how much money we're making every month, et cetera, and so on. But usually the biggest impact that we feel is when a customer comes in and they're buying something, and a new customer comes in and they say, "Oh, you'll love everything here. Yes. You don't have to worry about it. You'll love it."
Yes.
And that just makes makes everybody just say, "Yep, we're doing the right thing," because we have our customers being our best evangelists about what we can do for them.
Absolutely. And it's a both and. Your numbers, the revenue coming in, and all of that good stuff. And that piece for you that brings satisfaction is that customer feedback of raving reviews. And I think that leads to something that you shared with me offline that I want to make sure is in the interview, is the fact that you're not only serving people around the Mount Angel area, right? Or kind of up I-5 in Oregon, you're serving people across the country. So tell me a little bit about that. When you visit your website, there's kind of a little bit about the business, and then there's mail orders as well. So was that a part of the initial kind of business plan design, or did that happen after the fact? People started to learn that your bakery existed and there's a demand for these kind of baked goods.
Actually, it was one of those things that we bought with the business, because as part of the customer list was also the shipping that she was doing before. And we waited a couple months before we brought it in. And then when we did, we have a few regular customers. We actually ship to people all the way, New Jersey, Florida, and Texas are where some of our major, the most things are shipped to every month.
Wow.
And most anything we have, we ship.
Interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting. And so that was a part of kind of the previous business that you were purchasing, both recipe and customer base. Yep. From that customer base that you're mailing to, have you added any new states or cities or sites that go beyond what previously was there just because of what you're doing? Or is that kind of like for future plans?
That's more of a future plan, where there was a lot of the customers haven't re-caught up to us, or they have kind of gone back towards what they were doing before they found the original one that was up in the Clackamas area or the Portland area. But we are getting new customers too. One of the things that we found when we were on TV on November 6th was there are children out there, we know it was children specifically, that have a severe reaction to carbohydrates. They will actually go into seizures if they have too many carbohydrates.
Wow.
And we had a grandparent come down and purchase eclairs for her grandchild's birthday party. And that was the first time that the little girl had actually had anything as a treat, a sweet treat to her birthday in her entire life.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And it's those stories that we keep hearing that affect us the most, because it's like we're doing just that little bit to help somebody, and that really is that kind of a shining star that helps.
Yeah, that kind of feedback is such a gift. In some businesses, and I'm sure there's folks that are listening, where you don't often get that kind of feedback unless you really try to reach out and receive it. But just kind of the fact that people are offering that time and time again as they enter your shop, or even if they're ordering something online, to reflect back. This is so meaningful that a little kid who I'm not sure of what her age was, but I mean, if you've gone for 5 years without having a donut or an eclair or, whatever the thing might be, just like that you're able to share that, and that's got to be really satisfying. Just a few more questions on your business before we jump into the magic of being a part of the Rainbow family. When you're thinking about opening up a brick and mortar business, so, kind of stepping back from, just focusing in on the bakery itself, but opening up a brick and mortar, what might be one thing that the folks who tune into this podcast every week should know about that if they're thinking about going in that direction, but they might not, and maybe that reflecting back for you, what was surprising about that piece of opening a business?
When you're having to do a build out, how expensive everything is.
Yeah.
I was shocked at some of the pricing. Just, because one of the things that we were looking at was anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 for a small storefront in one of the shopping malls someplace, or even shopping centers. And, it was like if we were paying $3,000 to $5,000 a month, we probably would not be open right now, because that first year, if we made $5,000 in a month, we were lucky.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really tight, but we now know what we're doing. We now know how we want to proceed forward. And we're starting to get the people behind us in place to help us move forward with that so that we can start doing things. Because one of the things that we want to do is open small little shops, especially in the Portland metro area, and take our stuff, deliver it there. That way people can order from us, either pick it up there or walk in and have a limited supply of stuff that they can pick up too. So that's our next step, is opening up what we call our small footprint shops in the Portland area, so that people can start getting our items without having to come down to Mount Angel every time.
That's really smart. And now that you've been in business for 2 years, at least you have some data to indicate, okay, each month, this is what we're seeing from our shop at Mount Angel. It's just kind of simple math from that point, and knowing kind of the cash flow that you have that's kind of consistently coming in every month, and expenses, and now people that you're employing. But, it's all manageable. And then it goes back to what you said earlier, where it's knowing your numbers. Like that's a really important piece of all of this. And so it sounds like you're finding that kind of rhythm, which is really important, especially in a new business where those first few years are, there's a lot of question marks, and you now have some data behind that can help you.
Yeah. And see, we went into this with a lot of question marks because, like I said, we found out she was closing on New Year's Eve on 2016. The first week in Portland, 2017, Portland was shut down for 2 days. I know, imagine that, because of snow. And on the second day, I'm sitting at home and I get a phone call from the company that I was working with HR that I was being laid off from my position. And that was going to be the end of March. So it was like, okay, so we have a couple options here. I can go out and be looking for a job, or I can go full force into finding out what we need to do for the bakery. And we sat down and made the decision to go full force into the bakery. And so that helped me a lot, but it also helped because I did have that time to focus in and figure out what the costs were going to be and how we needed to do things too.
Yeah. And that piece of what you're talking about is, oftentimes the advice that has been shared over the past 130 or so episodes has been, if you're in the position where you have kind of a full-time thing and you are on the path of pursuing your business dream, try to kind of do both and for a little bit. And it's basically like working two full-time jobs, or potentially more depending on your work situation. And then there's the other piece of like, we had someone on the show a while back who was in journalism, right? Print journalism. Well, a lot of those jobs dried up, and she was laid off, and she had to. It was a similar situation, right? Of I can spend the next couple of months on the job hunt, or I already have this business idea. I've been tinkering around with it. Just making that commitment, and going full force, as you said. And sometimes, as crappy as it can feel, about getting laid off, that again could be the blessing that you need just to get started, and do the thing. And you're doing it.
Exactly.
Which is awesome.
And exactly. And I felt it as a blessing because for many, many years, it's like, I'm tired of working for other people. I want to work for myself.
Yeah.
And this gave me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. And this is my last question on the business side. You're talking about now you're bringing in more people, which is fantastic. And being a member of the Rainbow family, we certainly, and we'll get into this, stories where we have felt, we couldn't bring our whole selves to work for a variety of reasons, but basically the workplace culture not being ready for us. So I'm curious for you, as you're thinking about bringing in more people, you're bringing on some people now. What might be one thing that you're doing in your business to really signal to folks that this is an open business, that you want to bring in the best and brightest, and no matter who that person is, if they can do the thing and they can do it really well, that you want them there and that you appreciate differences? If that's my sense is that that's something that's in alignment with your values, but I'm curious, like what do you do in your business to communicate that?
Well, the biggest thing I try to make sure is that I respect everybody equally. The interesting thing here in the Mount Angel, we have a little town south of us called Silverton, where the Oregon Gardens is, that there's a lot of tourists that come through the area. But we have a lot of people in there that live in the area, that it's a wide variety of people. And actually, Silverton a few years back had a transgender mayor. And he owns a business up in the Mount Angel area. And to me, it's just like, there goes Stu, and she actually, forgive me, and she goes to her work and everything else. Then just recently, we have another newly transgender person in town. And I treat her with the exact same respect as I do anybody else walking in the business. And I also have a non-binary person that comes in all the time. And I treat them the same way. I make sure that they are given the same courtesy and respect by everybody who works here, because nobody deserves to be told that they don't deserve something because of who or what they are.
Yes, I love it. And just that modeling as a leader of a business, to set the tone for folks on your staff to watch you, engage people really respectfully, that definitely makes a huge difference. And I'm sure for those particular customers, they really appreciate it. It's probably why they keep coming back, right? So really simple things, right?
Along with great treats.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Outbosses, Rhodes Perry here. As you all know, part of my passion for this podcast is to empower you and fellow LGBT entrepreneurs to cultivate a feeling of purpose and belonging in your business. To know that you can show up and be the most authentic version of yourself. Purpose, belonging, and workplace culture are concepts I take seriously in my own consulting business. In fact, I'm on a mission to empower leaders just like you and those on their way to joining us to cultivate cultures of belonging. In my upcoming book, Belonging at Work, I share some of my personal struggles of coming out as a trans guy in the workplace and how I leverage this experience as one of my business superpowers. Now, I'm on a mission to support you in taking simple actions that will make a world of difference for anyone who has ever felt as if they needed to hide important aspects of themselves on the job. When you commit to purchasing a special, limited edition copy of the book, a portion of your purchase will support expanding workplace opportunities for fellow transgender and non-binary people. An added bonus, your story about what it means to belong at work will be featured on the book's website to inspire others. You're ready to belong at work now. To learn more, visit rhodesonamazon.com or text 444-999 and type the word belong. Again, that's rhodesonamazon.com or text 444-999 and type belong.
All right. Well, this is really good stuff. I want to kind of pivot and talk a little bit about more of your own experiences in the workplace.
Sure.
As being a member of the Rainbow family. And you've kind of described Mount Angel as this small town. We've talked about some trans and non-binary customers that you've had where they know that when they walk into your shop, they can be respected. Before we started to hit record, you described, I have a good story to share about being a business owner and living in Mount Angel. And so this is where it comes in, because I like to ask a question, and this is a question about a time when you're either working for yourself in your business, or you may have been working for someone else, where you felt that no matter how out you are or not, you felt like you had to kind of cover some aspects of being a part of the Rainbow family because you were either afraid of losing a customer, or for some folks, losing your job because of job security concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So for you as a business owner, I think this is the example that you wanted to go into. Talk to us a little bit about having a bakery in a very small town in Oregon that it centers around kind of people very devout in their faith, and how that does help your business and some of the things, mostly of the challenges and how you work around those challenges.
Well, Mount Angel, I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know, was actually founded back in the late 1800s by Franciscan monks and very staunch Catholics that came to this area. And supposedly, I don't know if it's true or not anymore, in the city charter, it was actually written that there can only be one church in the entire town, and that could be a Catholic church. So it's a very Catholic area. And again, this area is more of a red area of Oregon too, which a lot of people don't think Oregon has deeply red areas, but this is a deeply red area just because it's very rural, lots of farmers, and it doesn't always have a positive outlook on people who are part of the rainbow family. And so when somebody comes in, I'm always having to kind of judge as they're walking in if they are, how they look and react, just to make sure that I don't say something that's going to be offensive to them, because I will sometimes talk about my partner, my husband, Ray, and I will call him my husband to certain people because I can tell by the reaction, but I will also just say partner in the business because I can tell by the reaction if it went any further, it might cause an issue. And I don't want to cause an issue for somebody, especially if it's something that's good for them, like these treats. We have a lot of treats here that treat people so that they don't have to worry about increasing their insulin, things like that. So I'm always being very mindful of, again, how I treat everybody to make sure I'm treating everybody as good as I can.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, the fact that you're in Mount Angel and it's a town where there's only one church in town and it's a Catholic church, I'm sure that causes some folks to maybe scratch their heads a little bit of like, okay, there's a LGBT owned business. You had described a little bit about some dynamics with the business chamber in the area. I mean, your business is serving people not only all over the state, but all over the country, right? And so there's a lot of positive exposure. Maybe talk to us a little bit about some of those dynamics with the business chamber that's there. Maybe how you've helped change at least a few hearts and minds around kind of welcoming and embracing our rainbow family in Mount Angel.
I think I'm working on some of the people, but again, some of the other people, it's a little bit more difficult again because of the deeply held religious beliefs. They sometimes have a very difficult time accepting anybody who is not within their norms. Mm-hmm. One of the people that is not Catholic that owns a business in town, this is back when I first opened up back in 2017, it was during Oktoberfest, one of the people looked at me and said, "Oh, so you know what it's like to be Catholic?" It's like, yeah, I'm a recovering Catholic because I haven't gone to church in many, many years. And they're like, "Oh, good, because most of the Catholics around here just don't like to deal with people because if you're not Catholic, they don't want to deal with you." Oh. And I'm like, hey, we can get past that. We will get past that. And I still have problems with the chamber down here because unfortunately where they don't want to be supportive of all the commerce in town, they don't want to support all the businesses in town. Their three major focuses seem to be the three festivals that we have here. We have an Oktoberfest every September, then there's a Hazelnut Fest in December, and the Volksfest, which is sometime in February or March, and that all depends on when Lent starts. So you can tell how they kind of face things in this town. Yeah. So it's still a fight sometimes trying to get them to realize that there's businesses in town that we need the business from everybody, not just the 3 times a year that they think they want the businesses in here.
Yeah. I'm really grateful that you're there. It sounds challenging. And at the same time, just by holding space there, you're building relationships. And I think that's the secret sauce, in terms of really making sure that people, whatever myths or stereotypes that they might have about us, our communities, that really does evaporate when it's like, oh, Dan's a great person, like we really like Dan. And we appreciate Dan and bringing in LGBT fellow business owners from across the state, coming in to experience Mount Angel, right? I mean, it just starts with like that one kind of relationship that can really shift hearts and minds, I think. Exactly. Kind of, move into this kind of question around empowerment, kind of thinking of your own experiences being part of the rainbow family, the lived experiences, the unique experiences of coming out, and kind of charting your own course when you don't necessarily have society saying, okay, this is what you do as a member of the LGBT family. You know, oftentimes we're the architects of our own lives, and that translates into our businesses. How do you see these lived experiences helping you stand out as a business owner running your bakery right now?
Well, with the lived experiences that I've had, I grew up in Colorado, and I grew up in Colorado Springs. And at the time I was growing up until the early 80s was very much, even though it was a military town, a very live and let live attitude. Then after the recession that there was in the early 80s, the city decided they wanted to go out and get clean industry in town to try to keep the area going when a recession hit, especially because there was so much military there that it sometimes affected what was going on. So they decided to go to Orange County, California, and pick up some of the religious organizations that were there. And one of the biggest ones that came in was focused on the family. And you saw a complete change in the attitude of Colorado Springs once all of these religious organizations got there, that by the late 80s, there was more headquarters for religious organizations in Colorado Springs than any place else in the nation. And changing that conservative town to that religious conservative town really had a huge impact on the town, because the time I would normally come out would have been the late 70s, early 80s, and that was the time that AIDS was starting to hit. I went back into the closet, and I actually didn't come out until I was almost 27 years old. I came out when I was 26. And that was just more of a, because I finally have to do it kind of thing. And I had a mother that was loving and supportive, and she didn't care. I was her son, and she was going to be there for me no matter what. And I think still to this day that she was there for that.
That's awesome.
And so I worked in the gay bars back when Amendment 2 in Colorado was passed. And for people who don't know what Amendment 2 is, Amendment 2 is a amendment to the Constitution in Colorado that stated gay and lesbian people could not have any equal protection laws on the books, and no more laws could be taken to any governmental organization to be passed again. And that actually went all the way to the Supreme Court with a case called Romer v. Evans. And that was one of the times that the Supreme Court actually ruled that we were a suspect class. And so that did help a little bit in alleviating some of the discrimination that we do still face every day. But it opened my eyes, because after Amendment 2 was passed, I moved to Florida, and I was actually talking to a lady that I had worked with at a business, a fairly sizable business, a check printer there. And her daughter came out as a lesbian, and she couldn't understand how she could be that way. And it's like, well, you've known me, for all this time, and I'm a gay man. And she stopped talking to me. And that's when I decided I can't do that anymore. I have to be myself and be out there where people say, "Are you?" And it's like, yes, I'm not going to lie to you. So using all of that previous experience has got me to the point where I'm out and I'm proud, but I'm not going to go and shove it in somebody's face. It's not going to be that you have to deal with me just because I'm gay. You have to deal with me because I'm a human being on this earth, and I happen to be gay also.
Right. You definitely were in two environments, both kind of describing Colorado Springs and where you were in Florida, where you didn't hide. Like you said, I mean, this is the superpower of authenticity, where, if someone is asking you about your family, your partner, are you gay? Like those kind of very direct questions, you drew a line in the sand for yourself to say, never will I hide, never again. It speaks to your integrity, and you carry that into business. It also speaks to, I think, the resiliency of when you do stand in your truth, knowing that, in the example that you shared of the woman who basically rejected her daughter because she's a lesbian, you probably had a sense that she might not react very positively to you. But by doing that, you may have caused her to think twice, because she does know you. She does have a relationship with you. So, she stopped speaking to you because a variety of reasons, right? But maybe one of those reasons is she had to really kind of look inside of herself to figure out what's going on. Like these are good people in her life. Right. She loves her daughter. There's that piece of unconditional love, and it sounded like she had a good relationship with you up until that point. So yeah, these superpowers, they often come from, the fires that shape us, and the fires aren't always the most positive. but they definitely help us. And I think that it gives us longevity both in our lives, because we've seen things that are less than ideal and we've worked around them, but it gives us longevity in our business because you and I both know it's not easy. It sounds glamorous to be your own boss and have, like, people think you have all this time in the world, but it's really, really hard, right? And so longevity and resiliency are, they're definitely superpowers that I embrace, and it sounds like you've utilized them well in your own business.
Yeah.
So with that, right, like the challenges, the fires that are there, and then kind of like the diamonds that we become because of them, what kind of advice would you give to those folks that they're, no matter where they are, they could be working for someone else, they could be in their business right now, just to help them show up more authentically in their work? Like, any kind of final thoughts on this piece of the interview?
My biggest thing is just be true to yourself. If you're not true to yourself, you're lying to yourself. And if you're lying to yourself, you're lying to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, pretty simple, right? And that could be about anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely think, like, for sure, that advice could resonate with LGBT folks. I think for cisgender, straight people, definitely the same thing. I mean, we can think about things in the workplace that we may cover up. There's a lot of research around that. And the more that we do that, the less that we can kind of focus in on what our genius is of why we're showing up every day. So I think that's really good advice. So with some of the time remaining, I kind of like to jump into mindset issues of being a leader. Sure. And in this instance, running a business. And this is relatively new. I mean, you're 2 years in running this bakery. Mm-hmm. I'm curious for you, especially, you shared earlier in the interview that you were laid off. You had a couple of months to kind of plan this business, and you were, from the moment that you got that news that no longer are you working for at least that particular employer, you made a shift in your mind. How did you pass this kind of imposter complex of, like, you're not ready yet, you're not good enough, you don't have all the research, all the things that we tell ourselves of, like, analysis paralysis, of, like, we're not going to move forward, have these things. How did you move past that in that particular time?
I think I'm extremely lucky in that respect, because before I met Ray, I was very much in that imposter. I didn't think of myself as being able to be anything more than what I was doing. And I thought of myself as just this, I was working in hotels mostly in Central Florida. Of course, it's what mostly is there, it seems. And I didn't think I could do anything outside of hotel work. And being with Ray, he helped me adjust my attitude to be more of, if you are expecting good things to happen, the good things will happen to you. Mm-hmm. And that helped change my mind, where I was, when I moved to Oregon, I was looking at applying for like $8, $9, $10 an hour jobs. And he's like, you can do better than that. And I started applying myself and figuring out those things. And I started getting up there to where the last job I was making was over $20 an hour. But it still does not compare to having that business and having the positive interactions you have with people on a daily basis. Getting a smile from somebody and them thanking me for being here is worth more money in the world than I can think of. It doesn't help pay the bills right off the start, but it makes me know that I'm doing the right thing and that my path is on the right way.
Yeah. The smiles, the satisfaction is what feeds your soul, right? I mean, the people that you're talking about in terms of the power of partnership, right? Whether that's your life partner, your business partner, could be both, right? But the people that bring out the best in us typically comes from our partner. Hopefully, some of our biggest fans of just kind of saying, like, seeing what's within you, right? And kind of that reminder, that kind of outside observer bearing witness to who you are. And for Ray, reminding you, Dan, like, you have all of these things, like, do the thing that lights you up, start that business. And sometimes we need that. We need that kind of validation, or at least a mirror to reflect back the good stuff of what we have.
Yeah. And because the relationship I got out of before I met Ray was a 10-year relationship. After I had gastric bypass, it's amazing what gastric bypass do, because when you're heavy set, what you do is you swallow your feelings. You'll eat to swallow everything. And I couldn't do that anymore. And I had to start facing those feelings. And I actually went and got some counseling on it. And I realized that he was not good for me. He and I were in a bad relationship and it needed to end. And that's when I started believing in myself a little bit more than I actually started out, and knowing that I could start making a better choice for myself by moving forward instead of just staying where I was at.
Yeah. And it's sometimes those moments, those kind of really transformational moments in our life. No one wants to have gastric bypass surgery, right? I'm sure it's a painful, invasive process, but just that kind of physical taking care of your body can also shift your emotions, kind of what's going on intellectually for you. It just causes you just have this list of all of the things of like what's going on in your life, and it can kind of wake you up if you're feeling stuck or you're just kind of in a routine. Sometimes these moments are what can kind of push us forward and propel us to kind of the next level of where we need to be in our own evolution. And so I really thank you for sharing that, kind of your takeaways from that particular moment in your life. And it's all good things, right? I mean, you're here now, you're running your business, you've got an incredibly supportive partner who's reminding you of like how awesome you are, which is good. So kind of like on the, not so much the imposter complex, but and maybe this builds on it, but this piece that I think shows up, we're human, but in business, at least from interviews that I've had, how to manage fear, the fear of what's next, the fear of cash flow issues, the fear of growing your business, scaling it, whatever it is, right? That if people are saying that they're operating fearless, to me, I'm like, okay, what do you, where's self-awareness? Because a lot of times people make friends with it. They're like, oh, there you are again, and just keep going. For you, when it shows up, how do you manage it? If it shows up, I mean, I'll give you the option.
Well, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
It does, but I also don't let it rule me. I will say, like something will happen and I'll look and I'll say, shit, bank account's too low. Damn it. So we have to do something else. And then I let go of it because I know that I focus on it, it manifests itself in bigger ways. And if I continue to focus on it, it's going to make it worse. So if I don't pay attention to it, know that I can find a solution to make it better, it goes away.
Yeah.
So I recognize it and then I put it away so that I know I can move forward.
Right. It's the kind of like where your focus goes, your energy flows, right? And so
exactly.
And also not to bury it, but to acknowledge it, like you said, to kind of say, hey, there you are, I see you, and sometimes it shows up for good reasons, right? I mean, it helps you kind of, if there is a red flag of something happening in your business, it's like, okay, it's there. And what can I do about this? And just kind of focus more on if you need to process why it's there, go and do your process, validate the process, and then move towards kind of that solution side of things. When you start to take action, I think the action, once it's an informed action, can kind of move you away from that pretty quickly. But if you wallow in it, it can slow you down, and sometimes stop you all outright, So good advice there. Good advice there. One final question on this mindset piece, and it's more about, who are your mentors in business? Who are the people that kind of have helped you grow into a business owner as opposed to working for someone else in that employee mindset? And so you spoke about Ray. So I'm sure Ray is a supportive partner, coach in your life. But are there other folks that are in your life as mentors, or do you read things, like go-to source? Like I read this, every day or once a month, and it inspires me. Like who might be some other folks in your life that help you as a business owner?
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do is get with more, especially the LGBTQ plus communities, to get more business background, because I know there's people out there that have a better and a longer term relationship with running a business than I do. So I like being able to talk with them and find out new information that way. A lot of what this is really interesting. A lot of what I base my business on is from a very, very old book. Mary Kay Ash, who was the founder of Mary Kay Cosmetics, she started out her business just because she saw that there was a possible business to be made out of tanning supplies that a person next door to her was using to tan leather with, and she thought maybe it could work with skincare, and she put it to use that way. But one of the things that she always wanted to make sure people realized is that if the bosses help you grow, it helps the business grow too. And so I'm always trying to make sure that my employees grow. I'm always wanting to make sure that they're learning new things, going new places, and being able to learn more about themselves, because the more they learn about themselves, the more they're going to help the business. And so I always like to make sure that I, as Dolly Levi say, spread the money around to make sure everybody grows too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like such great advice. And, it sounds like kind of reading from business leaders like Mary Kay Ash, right? Who, she definitely figured out the secret sauce in her own business, right? And so looking to those folks and seeing the habits that they engaged for themselves, but then also, as they grew their business, thinking about the people, like you said, and kind of sharing these opportunities for self-development and what that can do for the entire organization. For a business like yours, where you do have people on your team, making those opportunities available, people don't forget that. And that can help create loyalty to a business that people believe in. And like you said earlier, pretty consistently throughout this interview, people are very happy when they're coming to get their sweets and really satisfied with kind of the baked goods that you're providing. So this is really good. I think this is going to be really helpful for people on many levels. And you're one of the few business leaders that I've interviewed where you have a brick and mortar business that is growing and you have a plan to kind of expand. So maybe it's like a Starbucks model. Who knows? We'll be seeing your baked goods in the airport sometime in the next 10 years. I don't know, but
we would love to.
Yeah. So if someone's listening, distributor, or distributor, there you go. So Dan, just 2 questions left for you. And the first is, for those folks that are just thinking about starting their business, so they haven't done it yet, what piece of advice would you give to those folks to inspire them to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
Believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, it's never going to work.
Yep. Simple.
And it's that simple, really. You have to believe in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think when you start believing in what you can do, that is contagious, and people like that. So find it within yourself. This is great. I really enjoyed talking with you over the past hour. For folks who are really interested in actually trying out some of your baked goods, where can they find you online, and where can they order some of your awesome, delicious sweets?
Well, online we are at Cinnable Sweets, and that's sin-able sweets.com, and it's SWEETS. I've had some people want to sell it Cinnable Sweets like a no-tell motel, and it's not quite that.
No.
And then we're also on Facebook under Cinnable Sweets.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we'll have the right link in the show notes for people who are interested.
Thank you.
And one clarifying question. So we have a lot of folks who listen internationally. So if people are like, I really want to try this, can you ship internationally at this point, or is it mostly just domestic?
It's only that. It's only within the United States. Unfortunately, international, you're going to be going not only through customs, but you also then have to worry about labeling and products and all of that.
Gotcha.
So it gets a lot more difficult once you try to get outside the borders of the United States.
Okay. All right. So for international folks, think about coming to Oregon. This time of year, summertime is always good. And then swing by Mount Angel and pick up some sweets. So keep it
come down to Mount Angel for Oktoberfest.
Yeah, 360. You said 360,000 people. Was that right?
Oh
my God. And the town
in
again
4 days.
is like 3,000 people.
3,500. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I can't. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I'll be there. I'll see what it's like. I'll report back. Maybe we can do a live podcast there or something like that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's always inspiring to talk with you and other outbosses who they keep me going. So thank you for that. For folks tuning in, for details from today's conversation, you can check out our show notes at outentrepreneur.com. We'll have the Cinnable Sweets website there. For folks who won't remember all of that, you can text OUTBOSS, all one word, to 444-999, and we'll connect you with those show notes. As a next step, please subscribe to the podcast. Consider leaving a rating and review wherever you consume the podcast. But if you do consume it using iTunes, that is the best way to help get the show noticed and found for other outbosses and entrepreneurs in general who could really benefit from the content. So for now, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.